So anybody that I can tell this story to, I tell it because I think that's why I'm still here. I'm supposed to share that story with people so that they don't end up in that dark space, in that place where I was.
Welcome to episode 9 of the Incarceration podcast, where we make learning about the world fun, engaging, and accessible, helping you stay tuned, stay curious. Stacey TheLight Stokes is a professional dancer and hairstylist working out of San Francisco Bay Area, recognized as Mama Stacey within the local club dance community. He has been an active participant and contributor of the house community since the 80s. He is the type of dancer that likes to mix a variety of styles together to create his own. A lover of all types of music, Stacey feels a special connection to house. This passion has solidified dance as a lifelong endeavor. When lost in the moment, Stacey is the embodiment of house dance at its core, raw, soulful, and a force to be reckoned with. As a runway extraordinaire, he has walked the balls and has twice snatched the European Runway and Grand Prize and recognized for the Leadership Award in 2019. As a founding mother of a house, Stacey's wisdom, perspective, and experience has helped guide house children both on and off the dance floor. Mama Stacey also enjoys working with the Bay Area LBGT community. In one of his most recent accomplishments, Mama Stacey has performed at the 2021 and 2022 Holiday Gaiety, a Vogue variety show at the San Francisco Symphony. He is one of the first ever gay black men to Vogue on this stage. Mama Stacey's motto, live your life and love the life you live. Welcome, Stacey.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, with pleasure. So excited to do this episode with you. I feel like from what I've observed and what people have told me, you're definitely an icon of the Bay Area. And I'm actually surprised I didn't come across you sooner, right? But since being aware of your presence, it's definitely like that's a strong agreement that I have too. Like you're at all the events, you always are very consistent with the energy that you give off. So it's only right that we do this episode.
Oh, thank you. That's really awesome.
Yeah. So let's. You obviously have been dancing for a long time, and then there's a lot to unpack there because you're still dancing. You're not a new dancer by any regard. So yeah, let's start with how you got to where you are. Your origin story.
Wow. So I'm from Palo Alto originally, and I started dancing as a kid. I remember we would have events at my house, at my grandma's, and they would pay me to go and start dancing. Well, I was going to dance anyway, so I've never been ashamed or shy to dance. Dance is just something that is embodied inside of me, and I just like to let it out. I discovered the clubs early in life, and sneaking in clubs at 13. Yeah, I started dancing in clubs at 13, sneaking in. There was this club in San Francisco called Different Strokes, Welfare Wednesdays, and you could get in for free. I would put my shades on and walk in the club and get on the dance floor and wouldn't get off so that I wouldn't get put out the club. So dancing's just always been something I love to do.
From that, how did you get to Vogue?
Wow. Vogue in the 80s. That's when I discovered it. Voguing, I learned from this other LBGT person named Strawberry back in the day. And we were dancing to a song called Designer Music.
And is Strawberry also a Bay Area native or local?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. R.I.P. Strawberry. But yes, Strawberry was an amazing Voguer. And we learned it. I learned to dance from him, but we didn't know that it had origins further down the road. There was something else being called Old Way. It was called Pop, Dip, and Spin first, and then it became the Old Way. And I didn't know this. I just knew it was about the movement, right? And so we started dancing that dance, but I never really committed to the dance. I would just mix it in with my style of dance because that's just the way I like to do. I don't want to look like that person over there or that person over there. I want to do my own thing.
Would it be fair to say that, or I'm curious, by your style of dance, do you mean like your own flavor on top of a style, or it's just you were freestyling and you didn't want to feel constrained to one style?
That part. I didn't want to feel constrained to one style. I wanted to be able to mix stuff together because I think it looks, if somebody gives you a recipe and you take that recipe and you do it exactly the way they taught you, it's never your recipe. But the moment you add something else to it, it becomes yours. So that's how I owned Vogue. It became mine because I added my own flavor to it.
What about Vogue that caught your attention? Versus, obviously you were exposed to other styles and other forms of music, but Vogue has stuck on through the years, right?
Yes. I believe it has to do with the actual posing of the Vogue, like the lines and the movement that you would do, and how you could be creative with your body. Because my Vogue is not going to be the same Vogue that you're going to do, because our bodies are built differently. And I feel like if I'm able to create certain movements that are different from yours, that's going to make my Vogue unique to me versus what you're doing. And I also think that Vogue has elements to it now. So back when we first learned the dance, we didn't understand that there were elements. And now there are elements to the dance that are, if you go and walk a ball and you're not doing the 5 elements, you're going to get chopped. But yeah, so those things were really important. Just being able to separate yourself from the next person. But you have to follow a certain structure in order to be considered the person who's voguing.
What was voguing in the Bay Area already here with Strawberry, or it got imported here through like another generation or another group? Because not to say that I have the right information, but my understanding of Vogue is primarily it like kind of started in New York, possibly, or
Yes.
I've even heard things like if it possibly even started way earlier, like even in some prisons. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Vogue was started by this queen by the name of Paris Dupree. Paris Dupree was in prison, and basically the dancers based off of poses in the magazine of Vogue. And then people started adding stuff to it, because back then it was all about posing, right? And then people started adding more movements to it, right? And it's basically loosely based off of martial arts, hieroglyphics, right? And a little popping, because back then that's why it was pop, dip, and spin, because we were doing these movements and stopping. And basically you were trying to make sure you look pretty for the camera, right? So that was why it was called pop, dip, and spin, because you would pop, 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 pop. Yeah.
Wow. So like, how did it start? Even start in the prisons, like that piece. Like, how did they get access to all this?
Magazines.
So they had access to magazines in the
Yes.
prisons. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You have access to magazines, and they would practice the posings from the magazines.
So from that and from New York, how did they get to the Bay Area?
Well, I think that people travel, and like same thing we do now in the house scene. We go to different parties in different states, and people see that, oh, that shit's sick. I want to do that. I want to do that right there, what they're doing. Don't know what it's called, but I want to do it, right? And then people start mimicking what they see, and then they bring it back, and then I teach you, you teach somebody else, and then it gets this snowball effect where everybody's like, oh, it's important. I want to do this.
Yeah. Aside from Strawberry, was there other people or other events that Vogue would be observed at?
Yeah. Especially like in the Black gay community and the gay bars. That's where we had another friend named Mahonda, who was simply fabulous at this dance. And like I said, before we knew anything about the elements, it was all about just doing the dance. And then later on, we found out that it had rules and structures to it, because we were just like doing our own thing, you know? And there was Mahonda, and then there was, oh my God, there's so many people that are passed on. And I think that for me, that's when that question of what is the dark side of Vogue came up for me. And I was like, because I lost so many friends to the crisis, that was the dark side of Vogue, because people started to disappear, you know? And sometimes when I'm at a ball or I'm with people I hang out with now today, I often refer to Mahonda, the Strawberries, the Sunshines, the Miltons, all these people that was there in the 80s with me that are no longer here with me.
Oh, wow. Is there any footage of them, or it's just like if you were there, you were there?
Yeah, if you were there, you were there. We didn't have cameras back then. Nobody, like, we took pictures, but it wasn't about the way we could film people dancing nowadays.
What are some projects and or successes and partnerships that you've been involved with?
Well, I did a video with Frankie Boise, who is one of the DJs in San Francisco. I'm working with some underground stuff with David Harness right now. I'm actually performing this Thursday on the 15th at the San Francisco Symphony for the second time. We're actually going to incorporate 2 more other dancers. It's going to be myself, this dancer named Jacquees, and then this other guy named Vince. And then we're looking for a 4th person, and we're going to perform Madonna's Vogue with the symphony. That is something to see.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of interesting points. First, congratulations.
Thank you.
Second, how did that whole opportunity get started? Like, did they already know of you, or like, yeah, just how did it happen?
So I'm the mother of the dance community, and I've been around a long time, and I know a bunch of different people. And a good friend of mine, Sister Roma, who is one of the sisters of the Perpetual Indulgence, reached out to me and was like, "Hey, girl, I got a great opportunity for you." And I'm like, "What's up?" She goes, "We got the license to do Madonna's Vogue at the Symphony, and we want to know if you'll come in and teach the queens to Vogue and then do a little solo." And then Jacquees was reached out to by Peaches Christ, who's also one of the founding members of that show. And they reached out to us, and me and Jacquees are friends. And so they're like, "Yeah, you guys should do this." And we said, "Yeah, let's do it." And now they've reached out again and it's like, "Hey, we want you guys back, but we're going to change the whole format this time. Instead of the two queens being on the stage with you guys, we want you guys just to kill the song, just kill the Vogue song, the whole song." So it's going to be fire. I can't wait.
Yeah, you know what? Before this episode, I actually looked you up on YouTube just to find out, see what's out there, and I did see someone's like cell phone recording of last year's symphony. Yeah, and so yeah, when I saw that, I was very curious about how that the whole thing got started. So like, since last year, what are some feedback or I guess that you've gotten from the show?
Wow, you know what? Because we were the first gay Black men to perform that dance on that stage, we made history. And I reached out to Archie Burnett, who is one of the founding fathers and a pioneer in the Vogue community. And he was just like, "Oh my God, I'm so proud of you. And like, you did this, like you made history. Nobody has done that in the Bay." So that right there was a pat on the back. It tells me that I'm going in the right direction. You know, this dance is bigger than me. This dance is bigger than you. It's, you know, it's for everybody, but it's really about us laying down a foundation so that our history can be documented.
Yeah. I wonder those who pass if they if they ever had any idea or inkling that like what it could and is turning into today.
Wow. I think that I am the torch that is carrying this on for the ones who passed on and the ones who went before me. And I think that we have to always honor them and always acknowledge and always give credit. And I give credit to Strawberry. I give credit to Milton. I give credit to Mahonda and these people who aren't there. There's also another person named Monte. As I'm talking about this, I'm starting to see them in my head. And those people were really pillars in my learning this dance and my being a part of a community much bigger than myself. So I'm carrying that torch, and I feel like I have to continue to push forward so that the younger generation understands that later on, when I'm gone, that, oh, this person was here and they did this, this, and this, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. What are your thoughts on like the scene in New York as compared to the Bay Area? Like, is it pretty similar, or what makes the Bay Area the Bay Area?
I think that the scene, what I see for myself is the scene in New York is very much, they have more opportunities there than we get in the Bay, because that's where the dance is created. That's where all the balls happen. That's where it originated from. So of course they're going to get all the love, but we get some love in the Bay as well. But I don't really see a difference between the two other than that. I think that with the dance, you have the old way, then you have the new way, and now you have the Vogue Femme. Each one of the dance are popular, but voguing femme is really, really where like the kids are really excited about it, because all the dramatics that happens, the flips, the dips, the spins. And I think that makes people really excited. I don't think there's a big difference between the two, because both coasts are doing their thing.
Okay, so you're saying that stylistically and as far as like spectrum of those three pillars is comparable, but what's different is that the Bay Area has less opportunity just because it didn't originate here.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. Where are the houses that those elders that you mentioned were a part of?
So Archie's Ninja, Cesar Valentino is one of the other pioneers that I look up to, and he lives in New York, and he's been Valentino takes the name. You have various houses. There's the LBGTs, there's the Mizrahis, there's the Gorgeous Gucci's, there was the Amours, there was the Energies. There was all these different houses, right? The Revlons, there was lots of houses, but houses are built on chosen family, right? And people tend to don't have anywhere to go. Usually they'll go to the ball, and if they see that you can Vogue really good, we want you. How can you be a part of our house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about like the strawberries that you mentioned earlier?
Strawberry wasn't in a house.
Okay.
We know nothing about houses in the 80s at that time. We were here in the Bay. We didn't have that information. We just had the dance. Yeah.
So like when did a house get to the Bay Area? Like what was the first house?
I don't know what the first house was in the Bay, but it was very underground. Everything was underground. You didn't really talk about it. You didn't really see it. You had to know somebody to get to that point, to a house or to a ball, because everything was underground. It wasn't mainstream.
Yeah. I have not yet been to an actual Vogue event, but as far as on the house side, I remember before, like you need to get tickets at this undisclosed location, and then you set your car like 2 miles down this road, and you make a left here. So I imagine that for Vogue it might be even more discreet.
Yeah, because it's like balls would start at 1-2 o'clock in the morning, right? Back in the day, and that's when the girls would have to come out late night because we would get arrested. Back in the day in the 60s and 70s, you would get arrested for being gay and being out in drag and these type of things, because it didn't start out with just ballroom and voguing. It started out with drag pageants. That's where the balls came from. They came from drag pageants. Crystal LaBeija was the mother of the House of LaBeija, and she used to go down to Manhattan and compete in these balls with white queens, and she would never win. And she got tired of not winning, so she turned around and was like, I'm going to go create my own thing. And she started creating drag pageants in Harlem. And then from there, it became balls, right? And it was mostly drag balls. And then men started walking runway. And from runway, they started doing pop, dip, and spin, which is the old way now that we know it as. And that's how categories started happening. And back in the day, they only walked for trophies. Now girls, if you don't have a coin, the girls ain't coming. They don't want to walk.
Yeah. So you brought up like the old, new, and femme. What are your thoughts on these three pillars?
So I think all of the dances are beautiful. Old way is really beautiful for its structure. The new way is really amazing because I don't have stretch. I'm old. My body ain't finna do that. But to see people be able to contort their bodies into those positions is freaking amazing. And the Vogue Femme, just to see how soft, and we've taken the word cunt and made it something positive. Instead of looking at it with a negative eye, we use the word cunt as being fabulous. And to see people be very cunt and soft when they Vogue is really beautiful.
How did that start? Was there like at a certain event, or was it just I guess I'm wondering how that word, not that I'm like for or against it, but I'm just curious how that was kind of agreed upon.
I'm not really sure how that word was agreed upon, but the girls start saying, ooh, what she's doing, that's cunt. That's fabulous. We like that. That's cunt. And then it just, like any other word that we use in a slang language, it just get picked up and people say, oh my God, I like that. That's fabulous. Like everybody saying slay now, or ooh, that's fire, or, all these different things.
So from these three pillars, meaning old, new, and femme, do you think that there's going to be a fourth pillar coming up? Like where is all this kind of headed?
Wow, that's a good question. I'm not really sure, but I'm sure someone will create something. Somebody that is out there that has built a name for themselves is going to try something dramatic, and they're going to create a move, and then somebody else is going to be like, "That's this new thing. That's the new thing. That's fire."
Okay, yeah, I'm curious to see where it's gonna go. I love seeing art evolve, and I love it when someone takes it and it does something. I'm like, whoa, I never saw it coming. Because to me, seeing new art is like hearing a new song, and it just grabs you, and you're like, it kind of whatever you're thinking about, it just you stop and you're like, hey, I'm really here right now.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's talk about balls.
Let's talk about balls.
Yeah, let's talk about balls. So What is it like being at a ball, and what are the components of a ball?
Wow. The energy is really amazing. It's really fire. My very first ball that I went to, huge, was a latex ball in New York City. I didn't walk. I was just there to spectate. I wanted to see. I wanted to experience, and it was something to see. It was really something to see. I had never seen anything like that before. Let me go back before we go deep into this ball thing and talk about Paris is Burning, because that's where most young people got their exposure to the ballroom community. They saw this movie and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And that's really like where it really started to take off. And then I'm just going to switch back over to this ball thing and say how much energy was in that room to watch the houses, because you see it in Paris is Burning, but to be there in the room and see the icons, Junior LaBeija, and see Cesar Valentino walk these categories or even get awards. Hector Extravaganza, who is the grandfather of the House of Extravaganza. Another really awesome, super down-to-earth person who just, to see him on the stage, and how many people in that room just loved him, his energy and what he gave. And he gave his heart so freely to people. Amazing. And to see how creative people can be with these categories, because we started from nothing. We didn't have nothing. And balls were created by people who were ostracized and didn't have a place to go or something to call their own. These people would go out and they would create these costumes to walk these balls and win a trophy and be happy and sit back and be like, 5 years from now, bitch, I snatched that trophy at the latex ball in 1982, or I snatched it at latex ball in 1985 or whatever the year is when they were snatching the trophy. They can look back at that trophy and be like, I walked that ball. I was there. I know what the kids were doing. And that's history. And it ain't always about the coin, because you spend the coin, but you got that trophy to look back on and be like, I did that.
I'm glad you brought up Paris is Burning, because I was actually just watching it before our episode, just kind of like refresh my mind,
Mm-hmm.
Were you ever at any of those balls, or and how accurate would you say that documentary was or is to the real world?
I wasn't at one of those balls. I wasn't even walking balls then. I was in the clubs here in the city doing my own thing in the 80s. So, but I knew of this, and it's very accurate, because that's exactly what happens at a ball. Girls show up late, they get their tables, they party. It's a good thing. You see your girlfriends you haven't seen in a while, and you compete and you work for trophies, and it was just really awesome. But to see Paris is Burning and to see what they did then and where we are now in terms of balls, like the balls are a lot more elaborate, because we didn't have a lot of money back then. Not we, but people who were throwing balls didn't have a lot of money back then. So, we rent a space, they get the trophies, they do what they have to do. But now you go to balls and they have beautiful tables with beautiful food for the judges, and, categories, the way the categories are written.
How are the categories made?
So say, for instance, example, if I'm throwing the ball, me and whoever, say me and you were throwing a ball, we call it the Vin and Stacey ball, right? And we would sit down and we would say, okay, so what is this ball going to be called? Let's say Game of Thrones, the Game of Thrones ball. So that would be the theme. And then we would write categories based on the Game of Thrones. And then you would be like, okay, so performance is Vogue. So that's like the hot category. So that would not get called till almost the end of the night. But then you'd have the face category. You'd have the body category, which is sex siren. You'd have runway. So there's American runway, there's European runway.
What's the difference between the two?
European is more feminine and American is more masculine. And I walk European because I like to kind of get my femininity out there.
When I see you walking, I'm like, that's a whole lot of confidence and swag.
You know what? When I teach classes, I always tell people, you walk down the street as if you're on the runway. You walk down the street. Practice it, because you never know who is watching you. And that's funny you'd say that.
What are some methods that you practice with?
When I'm walking?
Yeah, when you're walking, because in my opinion, you obviously didn't get here by accident. You know, like
No.
there's a secret sauce somewhere in there.
I learned walking runway from watching shows back in the day, watching models walk, but then walking in the clubs. We would walk in the clubs at night. The girls would battle back and forth. We like battle. Come on, girl. You know, we'd Vogue and have fun and be dancing, but we would mostly walk. Like, if you can walk in a club the way that I walk on the dance floor, you can walk anywhere. If you can maneuver your way through that crowd and not lose your step or your strut, you can do it anywhere.
Is there like a key component when walking, as far as like, say for example, if someone doesn't believe they can do it, or is it fake it till you make it, or what gives someone that spark, you know?
So I always tell people, if I'm teaching a class, I want you to walk on this one line right here. There's a pillar in the floor. If the wooden floor, there's your pillar. You have to put one foot in front of the other. But you also have to believe that the person in the mirror, you're the baddest bitch on the runway. You have to believe what you believe about yourself is what people see. So what I see inside of me, I put in the mirror in front of me. And I tell people, if you believe in that, you'll make it.
How do you stay inspired? Because, you know, I have seen in others where it's like, oh yeah, I'm this age, or maybe I just had some kind of life event going on, and I'm going to stop dancing. I'm going to quit dancing, right? But, you know, you're still inspired, and you're still part of the scene, you're still very active. So like, what keeps you going?
I love to dance. I love to have fun. I love to walk in a club and be like, you know what, I'm just gonna go get my life. And it's funny because I walk in the club and they know I'm there before I even hit the dance floor. People are like, oh my God, Stacey's here. Mama's here. Here she comes. Hi, Mama. And I'm like, hi. But it's love. I love that people love me that much to want to acknowledge me, and they see me, they get excited. And it's funny, people say, oh, I've been watching you dance for 15 years. And I'm like, okay. Like me and my wife, we've been watching you. We follow you. I'm like, okay. I got a lot of fans, but it's fine. I love it. That's what keeps me going. One man told me something. I was in the skating rink. I was skating. I met this man, and he says, I'm 65 years old, and I drive from Sacramento every week to San Ramon to skate. If you love something, don't ever stop doing it. And I love to dance, so I'm going to keep dancing until I can't do it no more. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. I definitely feel like dance, there's a lot of intelligence behind it and benefits that I think gets lost if you're not a dancer. But if you're a dancer, then I think we kind of take these things for granted, right? Like, you know, all the stuff with our joints and our brain and just like our awareness. Yeah, so I definitely always encourage everyone to dance, because it's like, I can't really think of anything else that has like as much legs as dance, because you can dance your whole life and there's always something new, you know. There's always something kind of to reframe about your body, or like, and also the fact that you're emotionally connected to the music, to others, to yourself, and you process all this energy out, right? And then you can always do it because you can turn it on the radio or something, you know. Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to balls. Like, who can throw balls?
Houses.
Yeah,
houses throw balls, and sometimes, like, a house can throw a ball, and they create the categories. They basically the structure of how this ball is going to play out, right? And sometimes they'll get organizations to back them. They'll get like the AIDS Foundation or such and such to donate money, and then they'll have them sponsor a category. And that's how that AIDS Foundation, San Francisco AIDS Foundation, or the LBGT project in Oakland get their name announced, because they donated $500 for the performance category, or they donated for the runway category. So mostly houses throw balls. If you're not a part of a house and you're 007, right, which means you're a free agent, you can throw a ball still. It's just that you're going to have to do all that work by yourself, you know? You're going to have to come up with the categories. You're going to have to come up with the funds to sponsor the categories. You're going to have to get the space and all that different stuff. But it's hard doing that as a single person. So mostly balls are thrown by houses.
Has there ever been a time when a ball was thrown by like a quote unquote outsider, you know, that wasn't part of the scene, but maybe just wanted to kind of take away from the scene?
Yes. They was calling it a ball. I won't say the name of the organization, but they were calling it a ball, and They had no one from the ballroom community on the panel. They had no people walking the ball, actual people from the community, which was really horrible. And the ballroom community was in an uproar.
So who actually showed up, or like who thought that was a good idea?
Those people that created that situation. And they called it, I can't even remember the name of what they called it, but they called it this thing. And I just remember everybody was upset about it. It's like, how can you call this a ball when you have no ballroom people affiliated with this thing? And you're given categories, but they're not even real categories. You're not even it was horrible. Just say that it was horrible.
That's why it's good to have friends that know what's up.
Yes.
You know? What's most important to you when you're on the dance floor or in the cypher?
That I got my baby powder. That's like a staple for me. I got to have my baby powder.
Let me tell you a story about like one of the times when I went to New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a few years ago. So it wasn't my first time in New York, and I was already familiar with New York at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I forgot that like New York is New York, right? So I was like, I had this baby powder in my pocket, and I was really thinking back and forth, like, should I keep it in my pocket? Should I bring it in? Am I doing too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was, for some reason, I was just really like in my head, you know. I wanted the baby powder, but I wasn't sure if I was like being rude or something, you know. So then finally, I'm like, whatever, fuck it, let's just put it to the side. I walk into the club. I think it was Funkbox actually.
Mm-hmm.
The whole floor is covered in baby powder.
Yes.
Not only was it not discreet, there was like a community jar right the pillar.
You're like, this is what we do here, sir. So it's okay. It's funny. Everywhere I go, I don't give a damn. I bring my powder in my pocket. I don't care. I'll be like, damn, is security gonna check me? Are they gonna pat me down? Am I gonna bring my powder in? But powder is a privilege, right? It's not something like you're supposed to have. But sometimes people don't understand that it don't take that much. They'll pour this whole pile of powder on the floor, and then the floor becomes an ice skating floor. But I have to have my powder. That's the one thing. And I love a cypher. But Cody said something to me, and it made such sense to me. I don't have to be in the cypher to get my dance on, because that's what we were doing before there were cyphers. We were just dancing, having a good time. So I try not to get lost in a cypher all the time, because sometimes we'll get lost in a cypher and we're just standing there waiting for our turn to get in. I'm like, no, just go over in the corner. You can go dance over there. It's okay. It's all right. So
yeah, I definitely agree with that. When Odie was on here, he said similar things where, you know, like when cypher's good, but then sometimes he likes to kind of like go to where the crowd just kind of like waving as an ocean, you know? He said sometimes that does more for him depending on the night, right?
Yes.
So like say besides the baby powder, what else is really important to you when you're on the cypher? Is it like, as far as like artistically or musically, what really speaks to you, you know?
The music speaks to me, and depending on what the crowd is giving, I'm able to just live. If I'm in that moment, like if I just get lost in the music, then I'm just like, I'm in the cypher and I get in there and I just explode, right? And when I come out, I'm like, holy shit, that was freaking amazing, right? But then what annoys me in the cypher is when you get this person that doesn't understand what's happening, and they're just there and they're creating havoc for the people who are trying to enjoy this experience and this exchange that we're having with each other. But I think for me, mostly it's just being able to get out and let loose, like be free.
Pet peeves of mine when I see something like that is like someone who is maybe not aware or new to the scene, right? And they walk across, but they spill this drink, and I'm like,
oh, that one gets me.
Yeah. So let's talk about feeling or rawness versus technique.
Okay.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Feeling.
Because one thing I noticed from dancers of like your generation and, you know, the ones who were pretty much around before like all this took off, right, is there's pretty much across the board, there's always like this level of like rawness. Like this is actually in your blood, you know. It's not something that's just on your skin, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whereas newer dancers, and I was like that for a time too, where, you know, we weren't born with it, right? And so we're really focused on technique, but ultimately I think the dance it lives in the rawness and the feeling.
Yes.
So like, but technique is the form and style, right? So What are your thoughts on that?
And I'm going to go back to my recipe because I always go back to recipes. And again, if someone teaches you something, you go to the studio and you learn a dance and you only do that dance the way it was taught to you, the dance does not belong to you. Coming from my era, we danced. There was no dance studios. I'm a street dancer. We didn't go to studios. We danced in the club. We danced in the streets. We danced in the schoolyard, in the hallways, popping against each other. And that was raw. And that was how we expressed ourselves. And it's funny. I see dancers coming to the club, the new generation, and they're doing the dances exactly the same way as they were taught to dance, instead of making the dance their dance. And I think that you have to own it. And I sometimes, as an elder, and I'm an elder, I'm 57 years old, I'm an elder, I will sometimes tell a dancer, I will watch a dancer and I'm watching him think about what he's doing when he's doing it. And I'll go and say, stop thinking. I'm like, what? I'm like, stop thinking about it. Just do it. Just let go. And then when you do that, you are free and you can just express yourself freely.
Yeah. So you brought up studio and clubs, right? How do you feel about so many studios and so many classes being available nowadays? Do you think it's like a necessity to evolve and spread the dance, or do you feel like it's kind of doing what you just mentioned, where it's just creating more copies?
There's a positive to having a space to go to and having open sessions. Those are important. But I think that people that are having these sessions are the people that should be, how do I say this? They should be trained properly. Just because you learn to dance does not make you a teacher. So you can't come learn a dance today and then go down to San Jose tomorrow and rent the studio and be like, okay, I'm going to teach everybody and I'm going to charge people $40 per class. You haven't earned your stripes. You're a private in this army. You haven't graduated. So I think that it's not right that people tend to do that. They learn a little dance and they want to take it and say, oh, I'm a teacher now.
So what would you say that like are ways that someone could earn their stripes? Like, what does that look like? Is it walking the ball and winning one, or is it just doing the work, being a community builder?
Yeah. Working in the community, going to balls, and learning your history. History is important in any dance, whether it's house, it's popping, it's voguing, whatever dance it is. You have to know the history first before you can start teaching the lesson. You have to, and that's how you earn your stripes. You learn your history, you know where it came from, you learn about your pioneers, because you can get online and you can see various people, Archie Burnett, Cesar Valentino teaches classes at Alvin Ailey in New York City. You can get online and he teaches classes virtual. When COVID hit and everybody was in the house, virtual was the way people were learning. So it's important to be able to know that the information's out there. You just got to gravitate towards it and go get it.
Yeah. So who would you say that like Vogue is for? Is there an ideal person? Is there any kind of requirement? Because earlier you mentioned it's for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it also started in the gay communities,
right?
So what are your thoughts on that?
I think Vogue can be for everyone, but I think that if you're going to do it and learn it the right way. Don't just, because I've seen some dancers take a few classes and then they just run off and do their own thing. And then when you try to give them constructive criticism, they give you attitude. And like, hold on, honey, listen, I'm only telling you this because I've seen it. I'm not the best voguer in the world. I never will ever put myself to say that I am, because I'm not. But I do know this. I know I need to be able to be humble. And as a dancer, that's what you have to do. You have to be humble. In life, you have to be humble. So I think that people need to learn the history, learn the dance, and go out and do it properly.
Who are some teachers that new students should learn from?
The industry should learn from?
No, new students should learn from.
Oh, no, new students should learn from.
Yeah.
Well, there are lots of teachers out there. There are lots of good teachers. I'm not going to say one's better than the other, but I'm going to say, if you really want to learn this dance, depending on if you want to learn the old way, if you want to learn the new way, you want to learn Vogue Femme, Naomi, Vogue Quim, she's amazing. Cesar Valentino, amazing. videos like online. I don't know this person personally, Stan Milan, but Stan Milan is amazing. Like I've watched videos of him, and you can learn from watching videos, but then you also have to be able to take these classes. Go to New York, spend some time there, and take some classes from some people.
Yeah.
To teach you.
What about you? Do you teach any classes?
I teach runway classes. That's the category I walk. I like to walk runway.
Okay.
I like to feel like I'm a model. I'm fabulous and beautiful.
Where do you teach at?
Well, I'm not at this very moment teaching any classes because I'm focused on some other projects that I'm working on. Like I said, with David Harness and with Cody, which we'll talk about. So I'm really focused on that, and really I'm in the process of trying to build something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely get to that. What do you hope that new dancers getting into the scene really take to heart?
I hope that they become sponges, and you take everything, and if it don't apply, let it fly. You know, you absorb everything, and then you pick and choose what works for you, because everybody's body is different. Everybody's going to move different. Whether you're a skinny person or a plus size girl or a plus size guy, your body's not going to move the way my body's going to move. So you have to pick and choose what's going to look right on you. And if the teacher or the instructor of that class says that doesn't look right, doesn't mean it's wrong for you, but try it this way and see if that will work better with your body.
What do you think separates the dancers of today from the older generation?
Dancers from back in the day were more raw because there were no rules, there were no limitations, and there were no elements to follow back in the day. Now you have structure, and in order for you to be considered a real person or a complete dancer in doing that dance, because you're doing the 5 elements, right? Then you can be, the new generation they have structure, they have to follow. We didn't have structure. We just did whatever we wanted to do because there are no rules. And now there are rules to the game. So that changes the dance. Because if you walk a ball and you're doing old way, but then they see you do something like this, very femme, then you get chopped because you're walking a ball. And when you walk a ball, there's structure. You have to, if you're voguing old way, you have to stay in the old way. You can't, I couldn't walk a ball, and because I like to mix dances up. And so I would get chopped because you can't mix old way with the new way and Vogue Femme all in one category. You have to separate them.
Yeah, let's jump back into balls again since you brought it up. What are some of your fondest memories out of ball, stuff that lives on to this day?
I'm gonna bring this up that we threw a ball. I was the mother of the house of Energi, and we threw a ball called the Origins Ball, and it was probably a really big ball on the West Coast here in the Bay, and it put us on the map. It put us on the map. We gave away a bunch of money. All the categories made it through the night, but I think bringing in the pioneers, Icon Divine, and bringing in Hector Extravaganza and Von Allure, who was the legendary DJ. He played at all the balls in New York City. He created the beats. And that's another thing. If we're going to talk about balls, we have to talk about the music, because back in the day, we only had Love Is the Message, right? And Von got in there and he started creating beats and making ballroom music, Vogue music. And that changed the game. So now we have Masters at Work, the Ha. And we still use the Ha at the ball. If you go to a ball, you're going to hear the Ha, no matter what. But Von was he was an icon. May he rest in peace, but he's an icon, and he was Uncle Von. He was a friend of mine, and I loved him. And he made the structure. He was the orchestrator of the ball. He could sit back and he would be playing his music and mixing, but he could tell everything that's happening, and he could change the rhythm of how the ball would go by the music he played. And he was just amazing. He was amazing.
Yeah, let's continue to talk about the Origins Ball and then the music as well. So let's start with the Origins Ball first.
So seeing people like Hector Extravaganza, they would stop the ball and be like, no, that's not Vogue, honey, that's whacking. I'm not going to mention the person who had got chopped, but he stopped them and he's like, no, I want you to Vogue. And the difference between the two. And then he showed them and then he said, this is what you do. And then the young lady, she walked in. She didn't win that night, but she made it through. She got her 10s. Watching people's reaction and talk about Origins Ball afterwards. When you were walking down the street, people would stop you and be like, oh God, Mama Stacey, I was at the Origin Balls and it was amazing. I had a good time. Watching Amy walk runway that night. Fucking killed it. Freaking amazing. That was really major just to see people from my house community jump into these balls, you know. Mark Hippie walking fucking sex siren.
Mark was there?
Yes, Mark walked sex siren. So I'm saying seeing these people show up for these balls in the Bay Area and show up and show out, you know? And the kids coming from LA and the kids coming from New York just to walk a ball, that's major. From our house, like, that was awesome. It was really awesome to be a part of that.
Yeah, wow. How did that whole idea get brought up?
Like I said, we were talking about throwing a ball and we wanted to make this ball memorable. And it was myself, the founding father of the house, Jeff, Ultra Energy, and Ryan Davis, who was the father of the West Coast chapter of this house, and I was the mother. And of course, you include the kids in the house, and we all sit around and we decide what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And we create categories, and we's like, well, we want to do something called the Origins Ball so that it would continue down the road. The legacy would continue on, you know? So we created that and it just grew into something much bigger than we thought it would be. And it was fire. It was just something to talk about. People still talk about it. I still wear my t-shirt.
What were some of the categories?
Oh my God. Like, I can't really remember off the top of my head. I just know there was performance. There was runway. I don't remember how they were written off the top of my head, but there was performance. Now there's two different things. There's Bizarre and Bizarre, right? Bizarre is the magazine and Bizarre is futuristic. Amy came out with this futuristic freaking alien something thing she had created.
Was that the black and white thing?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Killed it. That was really, really awesome. And I just remember when that ball was over, we sat in that space that night or that morning at 5 a.m, like, oh my God, we just did this. Like, we just freaking threw a freaking major ball. Like, that was big for us. That was our biggest ball. And we did that. We killed it. So yeah, watching people that don't normally walk balls. Because sometimes the judges would chop and they would explain to the person why they got chopped. You didn't bring the category, honey. Read the category. You always have to read the category to find out what it's asking for. Like if we say, bring it as a sex siren and BDM, don't show up in a tuxedo. BDM is what? Bondage. It's leather. It's, something dark. So things like that. But we have to make people aware. Otherwise, they don't know.
Sounds like a very impactful moment in history for the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember seeing Amy post her costume, but I didn't really see any footage from the actual event.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remember just the costume alone gave me indication of what caliber the event might have been like.
Yeah.
So because she went all out on that.
Yeah, it's Origins Ball is on YouTube. It's there. It's out there to be seen.
How does it feel to see Vogue go global from this like underground art form to what it is now?
It is like an aha, like, oh my God, this is major. Like, it's big. It's everywhere. Like, the kids are voguing in Russia. Like, I haven't been to Russia, but the kids are voguing in Russia. I remember being in Amsterdam. I went to ADE, Amsterdam Dance Event, and I was in a party. Crystal Waters was there, blah, blah, blah. A bunch of people there partying. We having a good time. Then all of a sudden, Bond calls me the week after I get back, and he's like, bitch, have you seen the video? I'm like, what video? He goes, a video circulating of you at this party, voguing, carrying on, having a good time. And I was like, no, for real? He's like, yeah. He goes, why you didn't tell me you were going to be there? I would have hooked you up with these kids in Amsterdam, and y'all could have threw a ball while you were there. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know, But it's amazing how one little clip, how everybody has a phone now, and it can go all over the world. Just somebody sending it to somebody else. Next thing you know, it's out there. And that's awesome that Vogue is universal. Like, kids are voguing in China and Japan, just like everywhere. It's everywhere.
One, I'm happy to see the art form take shape that it has. And two, what really impresses me is some of the places that Vogue is represented in, right? So like Russia and China, for example. I believe Russia has like some anti-LBGT laws. So for that dance to exist there, I think it's extra powerful considering the laws of that place, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because everything is underground. Like you got to hide. You get the girls is hiding to Vogue in Russia. Like they're hiding from Putin. You know, you gotta. It's not right that you have to hide to be who you are. It's not right. But I also like the fact that straight people are getting involved in voguing and they're loving it. You know, the straight guy told me last night. I was out last night and he's like, "Oh my God, I just like watching you dance." I'm like, thanks. Like that's really awesome. And he goes, "No, I always see you and I watch you." And I'm like, okay, thank you. I really appreciate that. Those compliments are really good. I like to pat myself on the back. Like if I made you happy by you just watching me dance, have fun, I did my job.
How do you feel about the way that Vogue is represented in some of the popular culture? So let's talk about Madonna Vogue.
So I think that what people fail to realize is, and it's not like the LBGTQ community doesn't realize it. It's mostly the heterosexual community that doesn't realize that Madonna didn't create Vogue. Madonna heard about the dance, went to the club, saw Jose Extravaganza, and she wanted him to Vogue for her. And this is just me repeating history, what was told, that he was like, "No, I'm not voguing. I got on my goatee." And then she had her security take off his clothes and let Jose put them on. And then Jose vogued for her. And then she said, "Hey, I want you to choreograph this thing for me." And that's how they became friends and so on and so forth. Now, it's just, like I said, it's just me repeating history. It's not like I was there and I don't want nobody to come for me and be like, "Bitch, you wasn't there. You know what you're talking about." I'm only repeating what was given to me.
How do you personally feel about like the way that Vogue is represented in a song?
I love the song. I remember in the 80s when that song came out, you know, and the video was fire. You know, it's the first time it was really being represented in that big of a form. Usually you'll see like Janet Jackson had a little bit in her video and there was a little bit in this video over here. It was just a touch. But now you've seen this whole freaking video based on this dance. That's amazing.
Yeah. And now you get to perform to that song on the San Francisco Symphony.
That part. And it's funny, when they said we're going to perform Madonna's Vogue, I was like, how are they going to make Vogue sound good at the Symphony? Okay. And that night, we came on stage and they did it, I was like, this is sick. This is really sick. And the audience loved it. And that right there was awesome. But the biggest part is to be making history.
How did it feel being on that stage?
Wow. Let me just say this. The day before the performance, I came because he had to go there and take a COVID test or whatever. And I got to walk out on that stage and I'm like, here is a Black gay man, a recovering addict, on the San Francisco Symphony stage. I'm going to dance on this stage. What's even more freakier, the week before I even got the call to be a part of that show, I live in that neighborhood, so I was on my neighborhood little walks. And I'm walking around and I walked past that poster and I stopped and I looked at it and I go, "Oh my God, Peaches Christ. Okay, Sister Roma." And I'm like, "Oh." And then a week later, I got the call to come be a part of it. So it was like the universe just lined up everything and said, "Here, this is for you. Do this." And to be there and not to know that anybody I knew was going to be on the audience. And I get on the stage and I see all these people and they're like, "Ah!" I'm like, "Oh my God, this is fire." That's an amazing feeling. That's an amazing feeling. I will never forget that feeling.
Would you say being on that stage in particular is like unique to all the other stages you've been on?
Yes. Yes. Because of where I come from. I ain't classically trained. I'm a street dancer.
Yeah. When I saw that clip, I was had so many questions. Like, what's Stacey doing on the stage with classical musicians?
Right. How the hell did she get there? Yeah, that was so powerful. That was so powerful. And the people, the opera singers that was there and the other person that was singing, they were just so happy that we were there. You know, they were really pleased that we were there. These two guys got engaged and they're like, "We really are just so happy that you guys were here. It's so amazing." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much." I don't take compliments for granted. Because, people don't have to tell you good things. They can tell you all the negative. So I'm really grateful that people enjoyed watching us move.
Yeah. Are there any other songs or representation of Vogue in popular culture? Because to my mind, Madonna Vogue sticks out. But like, besides the underground house music, obviously, right? But
Yeah,
like
it's
in popular
just-
culture wise,
Yeah, no, I don't see any songs other than Madonna's Vogue. That's the only one that was actually singing the song about it. You know, Beyonce recently, her new album, she's paying homage to the ballroom community, which is awesome. Honey Dijon is on that album and she's killing it. Kevin Aviance, who's the mother of the House of Aviance, is on that album. Mike Q, who is a legendary ballroom DJ now, is also doing his thing. And at that part, I think that we're getting more representation, the LBGT community, because of Vogue, because of DJs and producers, you know, that are out there in the community making noise.
did things change for better or for worse in both the LBGT community and also the Vogue community after Madonna's song got released? Was that were you guys like more celebrated,
I don't think that we were more celebrated because
or at least more accepted, or just what happened there? You know?
No, I think that we were, as a LGBTQ person, I think that we were screaming louder. You know, we were being seen, we were being heard, but I don't think that the song made the difference.
Was there at least more opportunity in the industry to dance more, or more castings at least?
No, not on the West Coast. Not that I know of. Yeah, I'm going to say not on the West Coast that I know of. I think everything was happening on the East Coast. You know, dancers were getting a lot of acknowledgement on the East Coast.
Do you know of any dancers that were actually in that video? Were they like true Voguers, or were they
In Madonna's video?
Yeah.
Yes. And like I say, Jose Extravaganza is in that video.
Oh, he's okay.
Yeah. And he got most of his people, you know, I believe they were in this video. The people that were on the Truth and Dare video with her, they were like on the Blonde Ambition tour. You know, most of those dancers were dancers from New York.
You obviously are still a great dancer, and you're still very fluid and active. How do you like maintain all that despite getting older?
You know what? Be completely honest, my knees are shot. I wrap them every time I dance with ace bandages, right, to keep my knees together so that they don't hurt as much tomorrow from the night before. Do some light stretching. I'm not the best at it, but I just like to dance. I drink a lot of water.
Whenever I see Voguers do the drop, right?
The dip.
Yeah, the dip. I'm always like, oh, my knees. Just feels it just looking at it, you know?
Yeah, well, think about duck walking and doing dips. That kills your knees. Like your knees be... Young people, I'd be like, Carol, girl, dude, you can do that. I ain't finna do it. My knees is shot. I'm old. And I express that and I accept that. Like I say, there are certain things that my body's gonna do that your body's not gonna do, and vice versa. You know, so more power to them. They can do 4 or 5 dips in one song. I'm like, I ain't finna do all that. You may get 1 dip out of me. And it just depends on how my body is feeling.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I hear that. Let's go back to the beginning where you mentioned about the dark side of Vogue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is that, and how do you navigate through it?
Like I said, for me earlier, the dark side of Vogue for me was losing all my friends to the AIDS crisis. That was dark for me. I don't really see any like, in every scene there is something. Like where there are people partying, drinking excessively, you know, and losing control, getting in trouble, that type of thing. But I don't see it as a downfall because everybody has a journey that they have to go through. And in order for them to get to where they need to be, they have to go through that journey. I'm an example of that myself. You know, I went to a really dark place in my life and through drugs and alcohol and dysfunctional family and all those things. And today I'm 24 years sober, and that was the dark side for me. And now I've found my way to the light as I got the nickname The Light in the club dancing. I'm really grateful that I had to go through that dark period to get to this light, you know, to get to the sunshine. So that's the dark side for me, is when people get caught up and not even knowing that they're getting caught up. They think, oh, I'm partying and having a good time and everything's groovy. Next thing you know, you're caught up in this addiction, you know, and that doesn't happen to everybody, but it happens to a lot of us. And so we have to kind of pray that we find our way back. I'm grateful that I found my way back.
Yeah. Would it be okay if we talk about that some more?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about getting caught up, right? Like, what can that look like? And how does someone new to the scene or maybe already in the scene still can recognize the path that they're on and recognize maybe I am getting caught up, and how do I get to the next step?
So for myself, I always like to talk about me. For myself, I got caught up in the game because I didn't want to work anymore and I needed to support myself. So I started dealing, and from dealing, I was using already. So I was really just trying to support my own habit. And I used meth. To be completely honest, I was using meth. I was selling meth. I was drinking alcohol, smoking weed, the whole nine. And I kept going in and out the system, in and out of jail, back and forth, until my house had got raided one last time. I had this thing called search and seizure probation, which means the police could come to my house and search it anytime, at any hour, any day. Didn't matter. They didn't need a warrant. I could be in your car with you and they could pull us over, and they could search your car because I was in your car. My house had got raided, like I said, and I went to jail, and then they gave me an OR, which means they released me on my own recognizance. And I got a letter in the mail that said, come to court on this date. We're filing an MTR, which is a motion to revoke your probation. And I went to court, and the probation department was recommending 16 months in state prison for me. And the judge asked me, do you have a problem with drugs? And I said, yes. And he said, well, how much drugs are you doing? And I said, anywhere from an 8-ball to a 1/4 ounce, just depending on what I can get my hands on. I was using and dealing, at the same time. And he's like, all right, have you ever been in a drug program? And I said, no. He said, I'm going to give you the opportunity to change your life. And I said, okay. He says, I'm going to sentence you to a year in the county jail, which can be done in the drug program. But if you come back into my courtroom, I'm going to give you whatever time you have left on your probation. I'm going to give you whatever time the probation department was recommending and whatever time I decide to tack on. I said, okay, Your Honor. I asked him, he says, I'm going to sentence you to this day. And when he gave me the year, I said, okay, can I have 2 weeks to tie up my loose ends? I have my sister's kids. My sister's a lesbian. She doesn't have any kids. But this is what I told him. I'm a dope fiend. This is my lie. And I told him that, excuse me. And he's like, okay, I'll give you 2 weeks because you always showed up for your court dates. You always came in. He says, but in those 2 weeks, you need to turn yourself in. I said, okay. I went back on the street. I partied. I did whatever I needed to do. I tied up my loose ends. And when it came time for me to turn myself in, I turned myself in. And that's where I ran into my cousin in jail, who was a deputy. And that's where it's kind of my wake-up call. It's where I met Miss Jones and my life began to change. Went back to school, got my GED, graduated valedictorian of my school. When I got my GED, went to community college for a while, and then I studied fashion, and then I turned around and went to beauty school, and now I'm a hairdresser. So that's just a tidbit of the story. But yeah.
So you mentioned that the judge gave you an option, right? Either turn your life around or go deeper into the path. Mm-hmm. Was that common for judges to do that, or do you feel like you got were you lucky there?
I was lucky. It was a blessing. Yeah, because he could have. My house had been raided several times. Yeah, he could have just said, you know what, the probation department is recommending 16 months in prison. I'm gonna send your ass to prison. But he's like, no, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to change your life. And what's really funny about that is and it's okay, I'm good. I'm sitting in the jail, I'm doing my time, I see my cousin, all those things that I talked about earlier. But when I decided to go to school and get my GED and I'm working towards it, I got to the program. I did 9 months of that year he told me I was going to do in the county jail. And then I went to the drug rehab. That moment at the drug rehab, I'm still going to school, I'm doing my thing. I get out, I do my aftercare, but I get a job. I opened Sony Metreon as a popcorn scooper, and then I became a manager, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't matter. What matters is one day I'm at work and I'm scooping popcorn. It's Christmas morning and we are busy as hell. And I'm scooping popcorn, trying to help my staff get, the lines down. And I look up and me and this man's eyes meet. And that was the sheriff who raided my house. And he looked at me and I looked at him. And he says to me, I retired. I said, I did too. And he says, come here, can I talk to you for a second? I get emotional when I tell the story. And he says, can I talk to you for a second? I said, yes. He says, you look really good. I'm so proud of you. Stay on that path. I said, I'm done with that life. I'm done. And I haven't looked back. I'm 24 years sober today. By the grace of God, I was able to come through on the other end. Everybody don't get that blessing. So, and for me, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do anything today. And I think that for me, I stayed there because I don't want God to think that his gift wasn't good enough or his blessing wasn't good enough. That's why I won't drink. That's why I won't smoke. I don't want that life no more. That life is that is the dark side. That is really the dark side. Like it gets really, really deep. Like I heard voices. I took psych meds for a year and a half because I was diagnosed with speed psychosis from doing all the meth, so I don't want to see my young generation go down that path. So anybody that I can tell this story to, I tell it because I think that's why I'm still here. I'm supposed to share that story with people so that they don't end up in that dark space, in that place where I was. So there it is. You got me to cry today a little bit. You may have a mascara run the marathon, but it's okay.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. It's very personal, and I don't take it for granted.
No, you're welcome. Like I said, I need to share that story because somebody needs to hear it. Some kid, somebody somewhere needs to hear that that's what meth does to you. It takes you, it robs you of who you are as a person. It strips you. You have no inhibitions anymore. No dreams, no desires.
Yeah, it sounds like a very empty place.
A very dark place.
What was like your experience during some time when you're an artist and clearly not like a violent person, right? Were you around other?
When I was locked up?
Yeah.
I was.
Because that's actually one thing I wonder a lot. Like a non-violent offender, locked up with a violent offender, right? Because I always wonder if like the two will contaminate, if you will. You know what I mean? Like the non-violent person starts getting violent, right?
So when you're incarcerated, everybody has a story to tell, and depending on what they tell you is you don't go in and talk about your case with other people because they may not know what you're in there for, and you may be doing less time than them, and that person may get mad at you and want to fight you or create so that you end up getting stuck in there a little longer with them, depending on what you're in and who you're with. As me as a gay man, so they locked the gays up in something they called protective custody. But I refused to go to protective custody because I feel like I can handle myself. So I went to GP, general population. And I'm telling you, I was going in and out so much. I knew people already. Like I would come back and the deputies would be like, you back again, Stokes? So there it was. But I knew people and I went to general population and I could handle myself. But there's been times that I did go to the gay tank where I just didn't want to be bothered. I just wanted to sleep it off and get out and just do it all over again. But you have to know that you want to make a change if you want to survive, if you're planning on changing your life, because you can go into the recovery pods now and do time and pretend like you're there to get your life together, whereas you're just really getting out there in it so you don't have to be in the general population and deal with that. But in the recovery pods, you had people coming in. We got acupuncture. You got people coming in giving you not full on massages, but they would get acupuncture. They would massage your neck and things like that. You had advantages. You got movie night and different things that you don't get in general population. But in the recovery pods, you got treatment. You get treated good. And then you become a trustee. A trustee is a person who helps keep the dorm clean. And then you have access. When everybody else is locked down, you're out roaming around doing your thing, So that's cool.
So I have to ask, since you're going on 24 years long, which is a very long time, right? And one thing I noticed in making changes is it's very easy to break the habit or to get tempted, right? Mm-hmm. So like, what keeps you so solid? Because I'm sure the temptation has come in and out every now and then, whether it's like other people or other environments.
It shows up all the time. It'll show up. I go to meetings, practice the 12 steps. I got sober to learn how to live. I didn't get sober just to go to meetings, right? So I got sober to learn how to live life on life's terms. And the one thing that I have to remind myself is that last run that I had when I was hearing those voices in my head, when they was telling me that I stink or they're going to kill me because, oh my God, for so many other reasons. They were just evil. And what's really funny is that the voices, I lived on O'Farrell when I was hearing voices, 631 O'Farrell to be exact. And that back then, that's where the prostitutes worked. And I would hear them and I would think it was the people that lived above me or was the people up under me that was talking shit about me, telling me that I stink and, I smell like shit and all these different things when it was really in my head. And one of my good friends who was with me at the time, I'd be like, did you hear that? And she'd say, yes. And I'd be like, okay, so it's real. But then a week later, she'd come and take me and say, oh, we're going to take you to get you some help because you're going crazy. Now, the type of dope fiend that I wanted to fix myself. So how I was going to fix myself was I was going to give somebody who was taking psych meds meth for their psych meds. And I would literally take the meds and then smoke crystal or smoke speed, whatever you want to call it. And I was fixing myself, but I was really not fixing myself because I don't know what the frick this person was giving me, And I was still taking it because that's what a dope fiend does. I'm not going to the doctor. What am I going to the doctor for? I had a physician's book of prescription pills and I could look it up and be like, okay, I'm going to take this. And I would try to find that pill. That's insanity. That's insanity.
Well, I can't imagine what it was like back then to see where you are now. But I have noticed that like a lot of the people I look up to, they have a like meaning like it's easy to assume that they have it all figured out, right? But the commonality that I find with a lot of people, including yourself, is like there's a big struggle and somehow it was overcame. But you didn't get here by chance or by ease. It was definitely like a lot of real hard work.
It was hard work. It was truly hard work. I remember when the doctor wanted to take me off the psych meds and I was like, no, they're going to come back. The voice is coming back. And he was like, no, they're only going to come back if you do the drugs.
Where was dance and Vogue for you during this time? Did you take a break or were you still going to the clubs and dancing?
I was still going to the clubs and I was still dancing. But what's funny is I was so deep in my addiction and I was so deep into dealing. I would literally get to the club at 3 a.m. because back then clubs closed at 6. Clubs didn't close at 2, 3 and out like they do now. They close at 6. And I would literally walk in the club and turn around and walk out because somebody would call me and they want something. I'd go deliver it to them, but I was still dancing. I was still going to the clubs. But then when the voices got really bad, I really couldn't go to the club, like, because the music would be so loud and the voices would be loud. And I'd be like, those people, they said you stink. Or I walk past that person said you stink. And I'd be like, oh shit, I gotta get out of here. I was literally so sketched out. I would take 3-4 showers a day because I thought I smelled really bad. That's how bad the psychosis was on me. It's like I was taking 3, 4, 5 showers a day sometimes. I was scared to be in my own house by myself. I had bodyguard, like somebody there all the time because I was afraid that if I got in the shower, somebody would kick the door in and kill me.
Well, I've heard at a surface level that meth does like one of the side effects is paranoia, but I never heard it described to the details and level that you're describing it at.
Yes.
So like, how did you cope with all this? And pretty much because the person before me right now, you seem very grounded, right? But the story back then, it seems like it would be insanity. Like,
it was.
Yeah. How did you cope with all that while still staying sober and then some at times leaving the club, and the club was your sanctuary, right? So
yeah, the club was my sanctuary. But when I was in my addiction, I was hearing the voices. I couldn't stay in the club. I would go there and I gotta go because so much is happening. So I would leave.
So was there any space that you could go to where the voices got minimized?
No, the voices were loud all the time. Daytime, nighttime didn't matter. They were loud all the time, 24/7. and they were saying things like, this woman said that I raped her. And I'm like, I ain't never raped nobody. Like, no. And the voices, they would be on me and they would be like, I'm gonna whoop your ass, come outside. Like literally, they would say, come outside. And I would go downstairs to fight them. And when I get downstairs, they'd be like, you stupid motherfucker, you know nobody down here, take your ass back upstairs. And then I'd go back upstairs and then say, for instance, I wanted to do a line or I was gonna smoke the pipe. I'd go into the motion of doing it, and one of the voices in my head would be like, you better not smoke the pipe. And the other one would be like, you better smoke the pipe. Do what I tell you to do, right? And I'd be so conflicted. And I'm like, if I don't do it, then they gonna win. If I do it, then they still gonna win. So I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna do what I wanna do. You don't wrong me. And I would just like say crazy stuff. And then I started to get, back then they had these little micro cassette recorders. I would record whatever the voices said into my head. I would say it into the recorder. And that's how I would get it out of my head. That would calm me down, because I know that if I just don't react to it, like you see people with schizophrenia walking down the street screaming, I didn't do that because I didn't want to be that person. I had enough sense to not to do that. But I would say it when I get in the house, you stupid motherfucker, and I would cuss them out. And my friend would be like, ain't nobody there, bitch. Why are you doing this? And I'm just like, I have to get it out of my head. It's like it's driving me crazy. But I didn't think it was the drugs. I didn't put two and two together that this is why this is happening. So I was still smoking drugs. I was still doing it. And then when I got sober and I got the psych meds is when the voices started to go away. I was hearing voices in jail before there was any psych meds or anything. I was in jail and I was still hearing voices when I was doing that year. When I did the 9 months and I left there and went to the program, I was hearing voices then. But I never told the deputies because they would 5150 me, put me in a padded room with the other crazy people. So I didn't want that to happen. So I stayed in general population. And the longer I stayed sober, the calmer the voices got. And then when I got to the rehab is when I told my counselor, I hear voices. And then he sent me to San Francisco Mental Health Crisis Center. And that's where I met Dr. Chapman. And Dr. Chapman gave me Cogentin and Risperdal. That was the medication I take. And to this day, those two medicine bottles sit in my medicine cabinet. So every day when I open it, I see that. Those are my reminders. I have a picture of myself in my addiction with headphones on, because I used to walk around with headphones all the time, listening to house music, so I didn't have to deal with what was going on in the world. And I have this picture that I pull out every year that I turn sober. I pull out this picture and I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, look at the darkness in your eyes. Look at how you look. That doesn't even look like you. Like all of these things. So I have reminders of what I don't want to do anymore. And I know for a fact that if I do a line of meth, then voices coming back like that. I don't want that. I don't ever want that again. Because that was hell. That was hell on earth. To be completely honest, that was hell on earth.
Do you still have those recordings?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I do.
Wow.
I'll let you hear them one day.
Wow. How did you maintain relationships during this time? And then, because you mentioned not only relationships, but you had the job where I think it was Christmas or something like that, and you were doing the popcorn and you met the sheriff.
Yes.
So you had a job then. Like, how did you maintain a job while being in the state?
So the voices were gone.
Okay.
By this time, I had already graduated from the rehab. I was going to school to get my GED. I was working at the movie theater. The voices were gone. I have taken the psych meds. I was good. That's when I saw the sheriff after I'd gotten sober. And that's when he told me, oh my God, you look really good. Stay on this side. I retired. I'm like, yeah, I did too. So that was really awesome. But to be in that situation in the county jail, having to deal with the voices and all this other craziness that's going on, man, I don't ever want to have to do that again. I've been stopped by the police one time since I've been sober. One time. When I was using drugs and dealing, I was getting stopped by the police all the time. Walking down the street, the police knew me by my name. Stacey, come here. And it's funny because when people meet me, they say, I don't see that for you. I don't believe that. And sometimes I have to say, well, I'll pull out the booking picture and let you see. Or I'll go home and I'll pull out my file. I'm like, here you go. This is who I was. It's not who I am today. So my past does not predict my future. But I think that I had to go through all of that to get to this. If I didn't go through that, I don't have a story to tell.
Wow. Man, so many questions. That's deep.
Any questions you want to ask? I'm an open book.
How did you maintain relationships with either your family or lovers during this time? Because it seems, like there's times when I feel like I can't handle social media or the TV because there's just too much chatter, So I can't imagine what it must have felt like actually hearing voices and having no mute button, right?
My sister, my sister who's a lesbian, she lived on the upper level in this apartment building I lived in, and we would see each other. And I didn't really talk to my niece and nephews and them that much because I didn't want them to see me like that. But every now and then they would show up and they would see me. And my one nephew, I don't want to get emotional, but my one nephew asked me one year, he goes, "Uncle, how come you never come to my birthday parties?" And I said to him, I always send you a gift. He goes, "I don't want your gifts. I just want you." That was another moment where I felt something. Because when you're deep in your addiction, you don't have feelings because you're numbing the feelings. You don't want to feel the pain. So you numb yourself. But I had those relationships. And then the other relationships was with other addicts that I was using with, And those relationships with the addicts were they were there for the baggie, if they could come get high for free. Because I was a very generous drug addict and a very drug dealer. I was very generous. I shared with everybody. It doesn't matter to me. But I don't say that with I'm proud I was a good drug dealer. No, I say that because I needed those people just as much as they needed me at that time. Because I had those voices on me and they were there to protect me so somebody couldn't get in and kill me. But wasn't nobody trying to kill me. That was just me killing myself in my head. That was crazy. I was crazy.
We want to assume that your sister must be so joyous to see you in the form that you are now.
Yes. It's funny. My older sister, her name is Sharon. She's my hero. She's my sister. I love her. I remember I was incarcerated. I was still in jail at the time. I was doing the time. And when I got out, I was like, I ruined my life. My life, it's messed up. She's like, "Boy, you'll be all right. Just stop tripping. You're going to get a job. Everything's going to work out." And it's funny that my sister, every 5 or 10 years down, she'll remind me, "Remember when you first got out of jail and you said how you ruined your life?" She says, "And look at you now." She says, "Look at how your life has changed. You rebuilt your whole life." I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. You are absolutely right." And I said, "You're never going to let me live that down, huh?" She says, "No, I'm going to always remind you of that." She says, "Because you were in a really dark space." And my niece and my nephews, they love me. They look up to me. I am there. My one niece calls me Uncle Fabulous. And then my nephew, they call me, I have a little nephew. His name is Isaiah. I call him Doodah. He calls me Uncle Doodah. So I am their hero. I'm their favorite uncle. I'm the one that's there for them, But I'm just so grateful that I had my family, because my immediate, mom, dad, blah, 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 everybody's gone, aunts, uncles. So my sisters are all I have, and my brother.
Would you say that your sister and possibly your brother are some of the people that never give up on you?
Yeah.
The other day, I had a previous guest here, Eric, which his episode was coming out in 2 days. But so Eric is a public educator, right? So he's a high school teacher right now.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that he really drove home was the importance of seeing the potential in people and never ever giving up on them.
Yes.
And how important that is.
It is really important. I just remember applying for the job at the theater, and I had this manager. His name was Ken. I don't say his last name, but his name was Ken. And Ken said to me, he says, "I think you should be a manager." And I was like, at the time, I didn't even have a GED. I was studying to get my GED. And he was just like, "No, you have all the skills. You could do it. I see that in you." And he's like, "I want you to take the manager's test." And I was terrified. I'm like, "Oh my God, no, they're going to figure it out. They're going to find out." Because sometimes you got to tell a little white lie to get to where you want to go. And I was like, they're going to figure it out. And he was like, "No, just take the test. You can do this." I took the test the first time. I didn't pass it. And when it came time for me to take it the second time, I had to remember that I have to think about the betterment of the company, not about me. But if I was the company, how would I want things to be handled? And when I did it that way, aced that test, got my GED, became a manager, and it was scary. I come to work the first day as a manager and I'm like, oh my God, I got to run this multi-million-dollar company. How the hell do I do this? And I did it. And I did it for 18 years. I ran a freaking movie theater. And that taught me how to be more confident, how to believe in myself, and just...
Was this the same movie theater that you met the sheriff at?
Yes. Oh. At the Metreon. Yes. At the Metreon.
Amazing.
Yeah. Crazy.
What if he, by chance, him and his family shows up to the San Francisco Symphony?
Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah, that would be like just,
And he'd be like, holy shit, that's the guy I arrested. That would be hilarious. But that would also be really awesome. Because I even asked him the day that he showed up at the theater at Christmas, I asked him, where's that judge? The judge that sentenced me to the year that gave me the chance. I would love to see him and thank him. It's funny because I had a probation officer. His name was Art. I won't say his last name, but I'll say Art. And he kept telling me, I need to come down to your job and do basically a wellness check to make sure you are really working there. And I need to do a drug test on you. And I was on probation for 5 years. So I had that 5-year tail. That's what they call a tail. And I would come in and report to him and have to do a P test, whatever, urine analysis. And through the 5 years, I would always come in and show up. And he'd always say, I need to come down to your job and make sure you really work there and blah, blah, blah. It came to the last day of my probation. And I came into his office and I'm like, oh, here you go. And he's like, what's up? And I'm like, today's my last day. He goes, no, I need to come down to your job. I go, I get off probation day. You don't get to come. I'm done. He goes, really? It's been 5 years? I go, yeah, it's been 5 years. But I showed up all the time. But I kept telling him that I changed. And he goes, yeah, people say that all the time and they go back. Mm-hmm. Like, no, I'm done. I'm really done with that.
How did you even get employment after going through the whole process? Because wasn't that like a big barrier to a lot of jobs?
Being in that situation, I got arrested for a felony, but I wasn't convicted of a felony. So back then, if you were convicted of a felony, you would have to mark that little box and say yes. And 9 times out of 10, jobs wasn't trying to mess with you and give you any type of action at that time. So because I went to rehab, they knocked it down to a misdemeanor.
So had you not gone to rehab, you would have been convicted as a felony.
Yeah, if I'd have went to prison, yes.
Wow, that seems like there was like 3 golden moments there, right? One was there's no felony, the judge, and that sheriff, right?
Yeah, sheriff showing up in the theater, getting popcorn with his family in the morning on Christmas morning. Yeah, but yeah, so because of that, I was able to get the job. And I started out, like I said, scooping popcorn. I was really trying to rebuild my life. And I started out scooping popcorn, then I became a corporate trainer, and I would fly around the country and open theaters for Lowe's Cineplex Entertainment. And then I became a manager. And it was just, that job is what I needed at that time. Because before I got into the whole drug culture, I did all kinds of jobs. I used to work for a development to disabled services, which was, we worked with disabled adults. And we'd go out in the community and show them how to clean yards and how to do purchases in the store, stuff that we take for granted every day. And I worked for ARC, and I don't like to say ARC because we don't say that anymore. But back in the day, it was called ARC, Association for Retarded Citizens. Now it's the Development to the Disabled, which is the proper way to say it. But yeah, I worked with a lot of disabled people and ran group homes for years. And then I got into the culture, into the whole party scene, the drug culture even deeper. And next thing you know, it became my life. And I'm just grateful that I made it out, because there's a friend of mine who to this day still hears voices, and he's sober. And his voices didn't go away. Mine's went away.
At which point, when you got into the culture, if you will, and then you went through this whole experience, that you separated, okay, here's the party side or the drug side, right? And here's the music side. Mm-hmm. And you decided which one to keep. Because like when you first got into it, did you see it all as one? Mm-hmm. Like, did you see it, this came with this, right? But then you chose, hey, I can actually just do this and take this thing out. Did it ever change your views of the culture?
No, I think that when I was doing it and it was all combined together, this is what I thought it had to be. And I remember I would go and party for days and do my thing. And then I would wake up, I'd go to sleep for a couple of days, and I'd wake up and I'd be like, oh, okay, do it all over again. And sometimes didn't even remember half of the stuff that I did, like, or who this person is in my house and why are these people on my floor? Like, who invited y'all here? But now today that I'm sober, I go out, I dance, I have a good time. I don't worry about being stopped by the police because I'm drinking and driving. I look at the night before, the next day, like, wow, that was freaking awesome. We killed it. Oh, somebody killed it. David killed it. Cody killed it. This person killed it for me on dance floor. Oh, I remember seeing this person killing it in the cypher. But as I'm thinking of all of that, I think about how I've always been this nurturing person. Like when it comes to people I love that I surround myself with, I've always been a mother. I've always been a mother. Even before I was a mother of a house, I was a mother. I was the mama. All my friends called me mama. And then later on, I got anointed mama by DJs as the mother of the community because I was always nurturing somebody and supporting and being there and loving them. And that's just naturally in me. I care about my people and I want to make sure people are okay. And just being sober today, I get to enjoy the scene more. But I see it with not like a jaded eye, but I sit back and I look at people and I'm like, oh my God, that child's toe up. Like, I remember being that child. I don't want to be that child no more, you know? And it's feels really good to guide people and be like, honey, don't do that. Because I'm going to tell you, that's what took me down. Yeah, whether I know you or not, I'm still going to tell you. You may not want to hear it, but I was there. I was you once.
Yeah, I really admire how open and transparent you are with this whole story because like it takes a lot of courage to say all these things in a public manner. What was your relationship to being spiritual or God before this experience, before, during, and after? Did it ever change? Did it strengthen or did it get weakened? Like, because some people are like, oh yeah, like all this bad stuff's happening to me. I don't believe in God, right? And some people are like, yeah, if God was here, this wouldn't happen, right? But some people might be like, okay, I got some breaks, so therefore, I think someone's on my side. Like, what was your relationship throughout this whole experience?
I was raised in a Baptist church and as a Christian, and I always knew God. Like I knew God. Went to church, sang songs, I was in choir, all those different things. But I chose this other path because I didn't know. I went left when I should have went right. And I don't blame anybody. I just think that when you grow up in a dysfunctional household or a dysfunctional family and you have things that are painful that have happened to you, you don't want to feel that. So we think, oh, I'm smoking weed with my homies. It's cool. But deep down inside, I'm really just trying to mask the pain that I'm feeling, the abandonment that I'm feeling, the being told I'm not good enough, the shame and the guilt that goes on. I had an uncle who my middle name is named after, Jerome, he basically had a nervous breakdown when he was 15, and he lived at home with my grandma, and I lived at home with my grandma as well. And he would do things like he would use drugs. Back in the day, they called it water, which is speed, which is now called meth. He used it and he would take our house apart. All the furniture, I would come home and all the furniture would be in the front yard. And he would be praying. And I would have to go to school the next day and the kids at school would be like, oh, I saw your uncle praying on the corner. Or I saw your uncle up by the store. He was praying, he had all these crosses and stuff, right? So you had all this embarrassment that went on that you had to deal with. So just to mask the pain, we would smoke weed or whatever, but not really knowing that that's why I'm doing it. I didn't find this out until I got sober and I had to do a life skills map of my life from where my life started to go to the other way. That's when I started to realize, oh, this is why I was doing this. It's because of this and this and that. And so God has always been in my life, to go back to the question. God has been in my life, but I think that I was choosing to get deeper into where I was going, and I wasn't really acknowledging his presence in my life until the voices got deep. And a friend of mine who was one of my good friends who I grew up with, who was also in his addiction at the time, said to me, he says, Stacey, God will let the devil get his hands on you just so you can see what it's like. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, bitch, pass the pipe and shut up, And so to be completely just transparent as fuck, I'm just being honest, is that he's like, yeah, just gotta let him get a hold of you. And I think that's when it kind of clicked that the voices, this is just deep, dark spaces and places in my life. And then when I got sober, I remember saying, I turned my back on God, but he never turned his back on me. He wrapped his arms around me. And what's really freaky is that there used to be this woman, I'm just going to use her first name. I just, because names are important to me. Anonymity is important as well. This woman, I'm going to call her Patty, but her name was Vicky. Oh, I just told her no. It don't matter. Her name is Vicky. And Vicky brought this woman to my house one night. And I had DJ equipment, and the woman was playing DJ equipment. She's playing the music. And she turned around, she told my friend, she says, "You do things for money that you wouldn't normally do." And he goes, "No, I don't." She goes, "Yes, you do." She says, "And I can also see that you were laughing at somebody's funeral." And he goes, She goes, "Yeah, I can see it. And the person used to put a gun to your head." And my friend broke down crying. And I had never met this woman before. She knew nothing about my voices. I had never shared conversation with her other than my friend Vicky. The woman didn't even get high. The woman just was friends with this other woman. They left my house, came back a couple of weeks later, and the woman told me, she says, "There's a circle of people around you that are trying to protect you from this other circle of people that are trying to get to you." She says, "And the voices, you hear one of them is very masculine and dominant, huh?" And I'm like, "Huh?" And she goes, "One of the voices are dominant." And I go, "Yeah, it is actually." She goes, it's really strong. And that's the one that was telling me, "Smoke the pipe." And the other one was saying, "Don't smoke the pipe." This woman called him, and she named all the people that had passed in my life that I had never even told this woman. She started naming these people. My best friend, Tony, my friend, Deshaun, and she just started naming these people. She said, "These people are trying to protect you, but these other people are trying to get to you." I was like, this is some crazy shit. I had never experienced anything like this in my life. But that's what sometimes God put people in your path, and he put that woman in my path so I could hear. My cousin, who I met in jail, her mother, Geraldine, her name's Geraldine, her grandmother, Minnie, who was my favorite aunt, was one of the people that were trying to protect me from these voices. Freaky, it sounds weird, but all of this shit happened. It is all stated true facts. This shit fucking happened. My life was crazy in that addiction. And I'm grateful that I'm on this side of the path. I'm on this side of the journey because I can replay those tapes all the time. That's what keeps me sober, is that I can replay the tape and I don't have to do that anymore.
Have you ever considered writing a book?
Somebody told me that, but I'm just like, I don't know how to write a book. But yeah, I've been told that a bunch of times. I've even tried. I've even like got my phone voice recorder and was like, yeah, and this happened on this day, blah, blah, blah. But I never, and the reason why that I think that I didn't really think about writing the book. Do you remember this book called A Million Little Pieces?
It sounds familiar, but I can't recall right now.
Okay. There was this guy. He wrote a book. I can see the book in my hand. It's light blue. It has a bunch of little beads on his hand, and it's called A Million Little Pieces. Well, this guy wrote this book, and he was on Oprah, and he was stating how he went to rehab, and they pulled his teeth without Novocaine and blah, blah. He told all this story, how his friend died on the train tracks and all this stuff. And everybody was reading this book. It was a big thing in the 90s. And I'm reading this book, and I'm like, this is a goddamn lie. This man is lying. And lo and behold, years later, it came out that he was lying. And that deterred me from writing this book, because people aren't going to be as open to wanting to read or hear about stories of recovering addicts, because this person ruined it for the people who want to tell their stories. So my story, sharing it like this, is more authentic, and people can even get into, they can see who I am, and they can hear they can hear the authenticity in my voice, that this should happen to me. This is real. This is not something I made up or thought about, oh, I'm going to say this. No, this realistically happened to me in my life. I was there. I got the t-shirt.
The story is definitely amazing. Well, if you ever reconsider writing the book, I will definitely support that.
Yeah, okay.
You guys heard it here first.
Y'all heard it,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
Y'all heard it.
Exclusive. Yeah, you know what? If you ever do write a book, we'll do a part 2. Come and talk about the book.
Yes.
So you mentioned that you're raised as a Baptist Christian, and also with taking into consideration Vogue culture, party culture, and also your own sexuality. Like, how did you manage the three of them? Because I know homosexuality is kind of frowned upon in Christianity, right? But yeah, so how did you weigh out those different perspectives?
So I'm going to come all the way back to my grandmother. I'm going to when I came out to my grandmother. I came out to my grandmother. My mother died when I was 11 years old. And I can remember one time my mother saying to me, I was playing with boy named Edward and this other girl named Lindsay. I think her name was Lindsay or Leslie, whatever. We was like in 3rd or 4th grade. And we were out in her front yard playing with her dogs. And my mother said, Stacey, get your ass in this house. I ain't raising no punks. And so he came in the house, whatever. And then my mother got sick with cancer and we moved back to East Palo Alto. And my grandma raised me. And I think I was probably like going to the 9th grade, maybe 10th grade, because I knew I always liked guys. And I was standing in my grandmother's mirror, putting on eyeliner. And I told my grandma, I said, Grandma, I have something to tell you. She's like, what? I said, I'm gay. I like guys. And she's like, baby, whatever you're going to be the best at it. That's all she said. And going back to the whole Christianity thing, I didn't choose to be gay. I knew I liked boys when I was knee-high to a turtle, right? I didn't know what it was called, but I knew that I liked boys. I knew I liked men. I was attracted to them. I had girlfriends. I've even been with a woman. It wasn't what I wanted. I knew I liked men. So, I didn't choose this. This is God knew who I was before I knew who I was. I believed that with my whole heart. And growing up, I was just like, I have to learn to love me because I'm not going to live in the shadows and be ashamed of who I am. And in growing up in East Palo Alto, I had to fight to be who I am because I walk down the streets and I'd be fag and I'd be like, where? You know, I'm a black man in the black community and that's where it's really frowned upon, you know, and we have to stop doing that to our people. We have to stop doing that to kids because ain't nobody choosing to be gay. Nobody wants to go to school and be bullied and ridiculed and talked about and treated bad because they're different. Accept me for who I am. Because what if we started, and we used to do this all the time, me and my friends, they would say fag and we'd pick up rocks and chase them down the street and throw rocks at them. Like, because that's what we called it. We used to rock the boys. Me and my best friend, Tony and Milton, like we were the three amigos. We were always together. I think that people have to accept people for who they are, you know, just plain and simple.
That experience with your grandma instrumental in developing self-acceptance for yourself?
Yes.
Or what else kind of led you on that path of being self-accepted? Because I
yeah, it was. What's funny, my sister came out to me before I came out to her. She came out and she was like, she caught me in the room with a boy. And I came out the room. I had some hair at the time. And my hair was all messed up. She's like, what are you doing in there? And I'm like, I'm just hanging out with Puncho. And she's like, something else is going on in there. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And so I said, well, I have to tell you something. And she's like, what? I'm like, I'm gay. And she's like, why? Because when she told me she was gay, I was like, oh, you nasty. Why you do that? Stupid. I'm like, because I wanted to be the only one. And you stole my thunder. But I think that self-acceptance is like, you have to accept who you are. I had to accept who I am. I know that I'm gay. And if he's going to call me gay and she's going to call me fag, I know who I am. My name is Stacey. Like, not that makes you gay because your name is Stacey, but in the 70s, I got teased a lot for that name. And I was like, I love me. I have to accept who I am. And I just remember just coming out and just didn't care who knew. I was just like, this is who I am. So funny. After I came out, I was hanging out with my friend Tony and my best friend Milton. But I was also hanging out with this girl named Sam and my friend Nisi. And my friend Tony and Milton walked by. And in the morning, I was straight. By the evening, I was out. I was gay. I was hanging out with them. And everybody was like, what the fuck happened? East Palo Alto was a really small town, right? It's small. And they was like, wait a minute. Wasn't you? I'm like, yeah, but I'm gay. It's who I am. It's who I am.
That was literally a night and day difference.
Yeah, exactly. It went from day to night. Exactly.
Would it be fair to say that like you bring out that authenticity and energy when you dance, and that's part of where it comes from?
Yes.
That rawness and that truth.
Mm-hmm. I think that growing up, I've always hung out in straight clubs. Like I went to gay bars, but I really hung out in a dance club. Wherever the music was, that's where I was going to go dance. I don't give a damn who was there. I'm going to dance and I'm going to be me regardless. I'm not going to try to pretend to be something else. I'm going to be me. And I remember girls would be like, I don't want to dance to you. You dance too good. Or don't outdance me. And I'm like, I dance by myself. Like, I don't care. I'm here to dance. That's all I'm here for. And I think that rawness of me tapping into my femininity when I dance makes a difference. As I'm like, I'm being me. I'm being 100% authentic. I'm being free. I don't care what other people think. It ain't about them. It's about me at that moment. You love it, fine. If you don't, oh well. But I'm going to make you uncomfortable if you don't love it just because. Yeah, just because.
Would it be fair to say that within your family, your identity was supported?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very much.
Was there ever any friction with the Christian part?
No, because I knew for a fact that my relationship with God is my relationship. It has nothing to do with my grandma, has nothing to do with my uncles, has nothing to do with anybody other than myself. And I was raised, like I say, in a Baptist church, but I had to find a connection for myself. So I stopped going to church for a long time. I didn't start going back to church till I got sober. And that's when I found Glide Memorial, where all denominations are welcome and people can come as they are and nobody's frowned upon. But when you think about the churches in the Black neighborhood, the big hat churches, what we like to call them, is when people are looking down on you saying, oh, you're going to hell because you're gay. I'm like, well, I didn't ask to be this way. This ain't, I'm supposed to fight it off every day, or I'm supposed to marry some woman and then turn around and be sneaking out and going to be with some man. I think me being authentically true to myself is God will accept me more than I went and made some kids with this woman, treating her bad because I'm sneaking off being with this man. Why not just be my authentic self? Be happy.
Yeah. Would it be fair to say that you are still very much a Christian?
Yeah. I pray. I have a relationship with God, but it's my own personal relationship. I don't have to be in the church to have a relationship because the God is of my understanding.
I like that. And I do want to add that I feel like, if someone believes in God, then he, she, it isn't just in this building.
Right.
That would be way too convenient.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Let me go on Sundays or whatever day. And then every other time.
You put it down.
Yeah.
Monday through Saturday is put down. But on Sunday, no.
Office hours.
No, yeah, exactly. No, I totally have that relationship. And sometimes I'd be like, oh, God, you just got to guide me through this one. If sometimes people get in my chair and I'd be like, oh, this person going to work my nerves. Jesus, take the wheel. Jesus, take the wheel. So it's just one of those things where I have my own relationship and I don't want what you think your God is to me or what vice versa. I just have to do what's right for me, what feels good to me and my soul, Yeah,
for sure. It's really refreshing to hear that because, I feel like at the end of the day, I think a lot of different beliefs have had the same common goal, but maybe the form might be different, right? As much as that there's different forms in music, right? But it's still music at the end of the day,
right?
So I don't think one genre is any better than the other.
Nope.
It's just if it speaks to you, then that's your truth,
right? And sometimes it doesn't even connect because I have bought music and I'm like, I don't like this, and then 5 years later I play it again and I'm like, wait a minute, this is kind of fire. Like, what was you thinking about? Because it wasn't time for me to connect with it. Everything happens for a reason. And I firmly believe that my life has been planned for me before I even got here. It's how I react to it and the steps that I make and I take to get to where I want to go. So all of these things I think that happened to me for a reason.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. Speaking of other things happening, let's talk about the recent club shooting in Colorado. Right. I believe I didn't look into like the full on weeds. But I believe there was a shooting in Colorado, and it was an LBGT club.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on this? And like, do you feel like did these things ever happen before in the LBGT club community, or is this like a new occurrence? And like, how has it might have impacted you or the LBGT community?
I can talk about myself. It's really sad. It didn't used to be like that. We didn't have people coming to the club and shooting up the club. That's crazy. And that could happen anywhere at any club, straight or gay, it doesn't matter. But it's really sad that LGBTQ communities clubs are constantly being targeted. And that's because my personal take on that is all the hate that's being spewed out by that MAGA movement. These people running around creating hate and hurting people just because they don't want to lose control. They don't want to lose power. They don't want to see people experience or grow or flourish in their lives and be happy and be free. A lot of times, these people that are doing this stuff are closet cased, are afraid to come out and be who they really truly are. Because I understand that this person who did this Colorado thing was closeted. He had been identifying as his pronouns were something else. He was her or whatever it was. I'm not sure, but my understanding is that he had some issues with himself, so it's just sad that people do stupid shit like that. It's just not right. It's not right.
Yeah, wow. I've never been to a Vogue ball, but I have been in the house culture for a good number of years now, and I can't even imagine what that would feel like being at a club or event and then people getting shot up because whenever I go to a house music party, it's like my barriers come down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like my barriers come down. I get fully relaxed. I can fully unplug. So to be in that environment and suddenly like just be shot up, like I can't even imagine it.
Yeah. I've never been in a situation where we had to run, right? Where there's a party and all of a sudden somebody starts shooting. No, I haven't had that experience, thank God. But it's made me more aware of when I walk into certain situations, I'm always looking like, where's the exit? Like, in case something go down, how the hell do I get out of this place? You know? But also, my walls come down when I walk into a house club. Like, I'm here to have fun, you know, and let loose. And sometimes it doesn't always happen like that, though.
Yeah, I want to say that like to the people in the culture, like the club is not just like a venue; it's like a sacred space.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So I think people who aren't in the culture may not know that connection because they might think, okay, club might be like some top 40s commercial stuff. And then you go there, it's crowded, you get drinks and you leave, but there's not a sacred connection happening there, right?
Right.
But the club that we're talking about is this sacred space.
Yes. We can go there and we can be free and relieve. Because to me, that's what it is for me. When I leave and go to the club, I want to forget about work. I want to forget about the bills that's got to be paid. I don't want to think about anything other than hearing this DJ take me to where I want to go. Let's go on this journey. Let's go. You know,
Yeah. So speaking of DJs, let's talk about CoFlo and your recent collab with him.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is fire. That is just across the board fire. Let's just talk about how this happened. I was at, I believe it was Days Like This party, and Cody was playing, and he played the original version of Stress Relief. And I heard it, and I was like, holy shit, this song's about me. And the reason that I said this song's about me, because when I'm in the club, no matter where I'm at, I always get some crazy woman that want to run up and dance with me. And I'm like, I don't want to dance with you. Like, I'm dancing by myself. Just leave me alone.
I've seen it happen, actually.
See, there you go. So I'm just like, wow, really? And of course, I'm shady, so I throw her shade or I'll do something crazy, whatever. So Amy saw me and she's like, come here. And I'm like, what? And she's like, I want to record you. Say that again, what you just said, so I can give it to Cody. And I'm like, okay. So I said what I said, that the song's about me, fucking you killing it, and I love this song, with, you know, whatever. So she recorded it. She gave it to him. He reached out and he goes, hey, I want to do a Mama Stacey remix of this song. And I was like, that's cool. That's awesome. You know, do it. And then COVID happened and the song didn't happen. So then he reached out and he was like, hey, I really want to do a remix of this song, but I'm looking for somebody from the ballroom to be on the song. And I was like, okay. So I started suggesting people and he was like, okay. And then he reached out to me again. He's like, you know what? It needs to be you. The song's about you. You need to be on the song. So I was like, okay, but I don't sing, but okay. And then he's like, all right, so just write down some things that you know you would say or that you say in the ballroom and we'll take it from there. And then he reached out again. He's like, I'll be off for, you know, some time. Come out to the house. We'll do a thing. I got there and he's like, we talked like me and you were talking. And then he's like, let's do it. And I said a bunch of stuff. And it's so funny because there's only one part of that song that I really wrote down. Everything else is kind of off the top of my head. And Cody put that together. We did it. He put it together. And he says, I'll have it in a month. And I was like, okay. And then he sent it to me. And when I heard it, I was blown away. Like, oh my God. But the first time I heard it in a club, holy cannoli, I lost my shit on the dance floor. I was like, this is me. And people are like, do you have a mic? I'm like, no, that's me, fool. Listen, that's me. And that was fire. And the song is getting love. It's getting love. Osunlade puts out his top 10 list and he made it number 3 on his top 10 list. Now it's on Spotify. It's on Apple Music. You know, people, I walk in the club and people go, oh my God, I heard your song. I love your song. I want to work with you. Like when we go work together, and I'm just like, I don't know. But that's really fire. But there's an a cappella version coming. Oh my God. I heard the rough draft. It's fire. It is fire, 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 fire. I can't wait. But what's really awesome is that my good friend, Michelle, Miss Hoo Hoo McPherson, the reason I said her whole name because that was my girl. She R.I.P. But me and her used to make these jokes up. We was getting ready to go to the club on the weekend, and she'd be like, "What you doing?" I'm like, "Girl, I'm working on my new album." She's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, girl, I got a new song." And now I really have a song. So in her honor, this song is out and it's out there. It's really major. And it's really awesome to hear people come up to me and say, "I really love your song." And I'm just like, yeah, that's me and Cody's song. Cody and I did that. It's freaking fire. Cody put on all the work. I just was in front of the microphone, but yeah. So now there's other things happening. Like I said, people want to work with me. I'm just like, I'm not a vocalist though, but I don't sing. They're like, that's okay. Like, there's things. So some things are going to come out with me and David Harness. It's just,
Yeah.
I want to put out some music. I just want to have some fun. And my thing is just that I just want to create something, I want to create something and just blow people's minds. Like, wow, that was you. Yeah, that was me. That's me. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you thought about being not like a singer, but more like a vocalist on top of like a Vogue vocalist on top of these tracks?
No, not really. I like the house scene more. Mm-hmm. I'm not like ballroom. I'm just like, I like to splash myself around everywhere. I want to be a part of everything,
Mm-hmm.
I don't just want to be committed to one thing. It's like with my dance, I want to be able to mix different things together. So maybe I'll throw a little bit of me over there and a little bit of me over there and keep it. Yeah.
What did it feel like the first time you heard that song in the club and you were there? Like, was it surreal? Was it like kind of a similar level of surrealness as being on the stage for San Francisco Symphony? As far as like, damn, that's me. I'm here.
I was at 7 West the first time I heard Stress Relief with me on it. And David played it. And I was like, holy shit, that's freaking me. And that's when my friends was like, that ain't you. And I'm like, yeah, it's me. Listen. And then Osunlade played it one night. I was in the club. But I think the biggest moment is when Cody sent me a video of Ash Lauren playing it. And it was in this huge warehouse space and the kids were living for it. And then to hear Manny Ward in NYC play it, and then to hear Larry Swing Kid play it in Berlin, I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is really blowing up. And Cody's like, oh, it's just going to get bigger. It's just going to keep growing. Like, just watch what happens. And I'm just like, wow, this is major.
Yeah, congratulations. I'm so happy for you and Cody.
Thank you. I'm happy for Cody too.
Yeah, especially being an artist. Just it's like the your breakaway moment is like, it's priceless,
Yes.
Yeah. How can people best support you? And any shout outs you'd like to mention?
I just, I want to shout out the community as a whole. The community for me has been the family that I don't have. The community has been there to support me and love me when I couldn't hold myself up. I'm very fortunate to have good people in my life today for the right reasons. Because when I was in my addiction, people were there, even though they were holding me up, but they were there for the wrong reasons. They didn't know they were holding me up. I didn't even know they were holding me up. I just was in that situation. But I think that I can shout out to the ballroom community for the growth and all the blessings that they're getting right now. It's really awesome to watch Deshaun Wesley, and it's awesome to watch Stanley Milan, and it's awesome to watch Archie Burnett. Archie Burnett has been around and has just received a reward for being just an amazing person. He's just so giving of himself. I reached out to him and I was like, hey, I'm going to do this interview. Is it okay if I mention you? And he's like, yeah, sure. No problem. Do your thing. When you have pioneers that you can reach out to that don't mind sharing their experiences with you, you are blessed. You are truly blessed. And I have to give shout out and give credit is due to the whole House of Energi, the House of Amor. Those were my houses. That's where I am. That's where I was. That's where I laid my foundation. I have to give shout out to David Harness, Peter Vila, Mark Farina, Cody, JV Velasco, just Nina Soul, Patrick Wilson, all these DJs that have moved me throughout the year, Osunlade, Louis Vega, all these people that have just moved me, and the dancers, like, oh my God, there's so many amazing dancers that I got to vibe with, that I still get to vibe with. You know, for my birthday, I have to shout my brother Zach out. Zach Dillon, that's my brother, AKA Franklin Bill. They really made me feel special at Elements for my birthday. You know, they celebrated me in a way that hadn't been celebrated in a while. It's like, wow. And there's all these dancers here to celebrate me and just exchange with, you know, and I'm shouting you out because you made this possible. And I'm just grateful for this opportunity and just there's many things coming down the path. I know there's more on this journey that I'm on that I'm going to be able to just keep shining, you know.
Yeah, thank you so much for all that and for coming on the show. And finally, final closing thoughts for our listeners out there. What would you like to close out with?
My favorite slogan, live the life you love and love the life you live, is that's so important. And just love yourself, you know, no matter what. And don't give a damn what people think about you. Pat yourself on the back when nobody else will. Because there's going to be a lot of times in life that's what I learned in recovery, is that I have to pat myself on the back. Because a lot of times ain't nobody going to give you your flowers. So you have to give them to yourself.